We are ready. Welcome everyone to the March meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee. We are going to get started. We've got a light agenda in terms of items, but at least, well, several very important things. So we're just going to start with the easiest thing, approval of the minutes. Any changes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as stated.
Second.
All right, the minutes are approved. Update and report, so we have two, and I know Doug and Ben are both here. Is there anything you want to add? Oh, well, you actually need us to say something, so come on up, Doug.
Good afternoon, everybody. Doug Whitman with Finance. And the purpose of this was really just to give the committee a quick update on the LED streetlight situation. Going back a few months, especially from Finance, we had a few issues or a few concerns. One of them was if we transferred the streetlights from the city over to Duke Energy, would that somehow trigger what's called private use? Because we were able to use tax-free funding to purchase these LED streetlights. And so we had a takeaway from one of the last meetings to find out more about that. And the nuance here is that if we transfer the LED streetlights at no cost to Duke Energy, does that still trigger the same concerns or issues? And the answer is no, it does not. So from a finance standpoint, there's really nothing standing in the way of moving forward with this idea. Finance had a few other concerns, one of which was instead of transferring it at no cost, might there be other buyers? But doing some research, actually, the technology on LED streetlights continues to move forward. So even if you go back just 5 years, that really doesn't have any material value in the secondary market. We were concerned if we transferred these LED streetlights at no value, would we have a large write-off on our balance sheet? And actually, we have amortized that over a 5-year period, so most of it is already amortized away. So all of those concerns that we had, specifically from a finance perspective, are really immaterial. And so what we wanted to do was to let you know you had asked these questions. That's a follow-up on those or answers to those. And then also provide you just a quick update. So what we are intending on doing is there's still some issues, some economics or some details to work out with Duke Energy. They're aware that we're interested in having further discussions. And so we will be sending them a letter which basically requests for a complete breakdown, a lot of the details. If we were to do this, you know, the devil is in the details kind of thing. How do they view that? And then what we plan on doing is, as we work through that analysis over the next month or two, we would come back to this committee with a proposal, either to move forward, full on, or whatever concerns we might have. So we simply wanted to give you that update and make sure that you were comfortable with us moving forward with Duke Energy.
Any questions for Doug about that?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. All right, Ben.
First of all, thank you and good afternoon.
Would you bend that microphone up to you a little bit? There
We
you
have a brief presentation that we can go through fairly quickly, if that's okay with the committee, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would like to
Okay.
see this for sure. It's very important.
If you go up in the top right-hand corner, hit present, that should make it.
There you go. So we're going to do this relatively quickly, and I do think it's an important tool that Development Services has been working on. We have, our department has partnered with IT Services and with Planning and Urban Design. And what we're going to do, we're going to triple team this today. Real quickly, I'm going to talk about the background and need for what's called a development notification tool. Chris Collins, who is the Site Development Engineering Division Manager in DSD, he's going to talk about a survey that we did earlier, as well as the tool itself. And then Melanie Maznek from IT Services is going to talk about some of the testing and implementation that we're doing with this tool. So real quickly, something that this council is probably well aware of in Asheville is that our residents frequently express frustration with our process. That encompasses a lot of things, but one of the things we really hear a lot from residents is is a lack of understanding of the review process. And admittedly, you will see some information that you can probably see why that's obvious, that it's a difficult process to make simple. But additionally, I think a lot of frustration with our community resides around the fact that people don't know about development until they feel like it's too late. And then when the information is made available, it's difficult to understand and they don't know how to engage. So part of what we're trying to do with this tool is make information readily available in a timely manner to citizens, but also educate them how to use and consume that information and better engage in these processes. And when we say major development, this started as a tool that's primarily geared towards items that require a public hearing. So things that come to the city council, as you know, there are minimum statutory requirements. City of Asheville meets those. I would argue those are probably not adequate in today's world with today's technology. So we're trying to improve upon the minimum and make sure that not only we meet the statutory requirements, but people really understand development as it comes to the city. One thing that we've learned, though, I think, is people want to know about development that comes to the city council, but they just want to know generally about really all types of development. So we're even trying to scale this tool where it can provide notice if there's a public hearing, but it might even provide notice of smaller developments that are approved by the staff level, and Chris is going to talk about that a little bit. And finally, before we came to you, we went to the Neighborhood Advisory Committee, reviewed this tool. They were very excited about it, so I felt like we got good feedback from that group. There are actually a number of those folks signed up to be testers for us. We have them testing it already. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn this over to Chris to talk about the survey we did and the tool itself. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Okay, as Ben said, we had a survey that was step one for this project. That was launched through Open City Hall. We did have well over 200 responses. We say well over 200 because it was up in the mid 200s somewhere, give or take, with some things that were decipherable and not. But we got a pretty good turnout for an online survey. Long story short. Our top requested features, we went through those answers and we said, what are the data people want to know and what are the features they wanted to have? These are the top features we had requested, which were, we distilled down to being notified about development. We started this survey without an assumption that that's what we were doing, just trying to figure out the best way to do it. Accessibility to meetings like live streams, we're doing that with a lot of meetings now. Maybe there's a chance to expand that. And granularity control, which is our term we came up with for people want to know what's going on their commute, in their neighborhood. They want to be able to choose where they get told or what they get told about it. So those were our top 3 requested features. And we started out, actually, this is a whiteboard image of us trying to explain the development review process to IT. And it was like really, we had to stop several times
That
and
is
open the
beautiful.
ordinance.
They're
and,
like-
go back and forth.
That is beautiful.
So, yeah, that's how it works.
Great,
But,
done.
yeah,
Done.
so
Now,
simply
yeah,
as we
can
were.
you make sure everyone else understands, right?
Yeah, no problem, right? Yeah.
Easy peasy.
So we realized that as we go through this, we need to make this easier to understand. Right? We had a room full of city employees who were like, no, erase this back here, whatever. So that helped us go through that exercise.
Great.
So what we heard from some of the more less guided questions in the survey was that we wanted timely notifications. For us, that means we need to automate it with our current systems, so people aren't waiting on staff to curate information and get it out there. And they want to know, here it is, what it is, and here's how to communicate and get involved with the process. All right, so now I'll take you through what we're planning on the tool. And real quick, this is basically the same presentation we gave to the Neighborhood Advisory Committee. And since then, we've had some user testing sessions, some things have changed. And, I'll make some side notes here and there, but for anything that's not quite up to date, that's the reason. All right, so first of all, it's going to be an opt-in system for round 1. Basically, even a city of our size, we can't notify everybody if we try. So the way to do that is to publicize this, invite people in, get people to sign up and be part of this. We're working a lot with Brenda Mills and neighborhood groups, trying to make sure we get neighborhood groups plugged in, even if individuals aren't plugged in. So we get everybody we can to come in and sign up to be part of this system. choosing your notifications, this is that granularity, you know, I talked about. We designed this originally by zip codes. The first thing we heard was, no, that's not what people want. Zip codes are too broad, and they are, you know, you're in a zip code, you're gonna get a lot of information. We don't have that many zip codes here, so we're working on narrowing that down some, but they will choose where they want to get notifications. We're also working on aspects such as like affordable housing and things like that. If people are interested in those things, they could check that as well. Email delivery is what we're starting with. From an equity perspective, we felt email was the best way to start. We have a lot of people that may, even if they have a smart device, they may not have a cellular plan, but they may have access to free Wi-Fi. So it's a lot easier to obtain email capabilities than SMS or text. So we thought that was a good start. And again, the point here, simple email, easily recognizable from the city, linking to information about the development you're being notified of. And then application information, each development application we have will be presented on a web page of its own that will be easy to decipher, hopefully, and have links to inform people about that process we had on the whiteboard there. And it won't just be a picture of that whiteboard. And that's where the process education comes in. We're working through materials to guide folks through the terms, reviews, and processes, and most importantly, identify when and how to get involved, and be very blunt about things that we have to approve and things that are up for hearing and consideration. All right, so right now these are just some prototype screenshot images of what we're working through. We'll go through these pretty quick. First of all, I know this came up really small. It's hard to get it on there, but this is everything somebody would have to put in right now to set register for notifications. We're not looking to collect a lot of personal information. It's an email, and what kind of notifications do you want? And there's a searchable page to look up project information and details about things. This is all being run through right now the Simplicity portal. So we also heard a lot of service fatigue out there. People don't want to have to go to too many different places. So that's where a lot of our services are now. So, and then this is right now a prototype, very extreme prototype. We've got a lot of simplification to work on for a project page right now. So it's pulling all this information from applications we're already getting. And we're working on making that more and more user-friendly as we get towards the finish line here. This is a broad view of the development process information. You see those lines when you get into it, and I'll zoom in a little on a couple of these and flip through real quick.
Yes, no.
Kind of a yes, no, yeah, we're working on kind of a highlight a route, like you were just told that this is a level 2, so you're gonna click level 2, go over here, it's gonna highlight a route and describe that process and plug people into that process. So this is the overview, you can't read anything there definitely because it's too zoomed out, but for instance, that's still a little smaller than I was hoping, but now you're gonna start talking about our different development tiers and things like that in these boxes, level 1s, level 2s, subdivisions. And we keep on heading down, going through types of reviews that occur depending on what track you're following. Further down, and this is the last one I'm gonna show, but it does go all the way to project approval. Trying to explain people through there. Each time we use a term or something, we're planning on having information to link back to. The disclaimer is we learned the education piece of this is by far the largest piece of this project. So it will get built as time goes. We hope to have a really good product out the door to begin with, but add to that as we go. Okay. That's everything. So I'm gonna turn it over to Melanie to talk about our testing so far.
Hi, I'm Melanie. I work in IT. I'm the person for whom they made that lovely diagram.
Just, Molly, just make sure you're talking into that microphone so the thousands of people out in TV land can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So for the last 2 weeks, I've been conducting the first round of usability testing. And so usability testing is really just the tech industry term for ethnographic research. So I'm learning by observing people using the prototypes that I've made. And so this was the first round, so I've learned, like Chris mentioned, that I definitely need to change the zip code thing. I heard from people that they did not want to sign up by zip code, that was way too broad.
not work.
I don't think that one controls.
And you can see I've learned some other things from talking. I've talked to 5 people so far. And so, for example, of the type of thing I'm looking to find out in usability testing is that button way down at the bottom. Everyone I talked to was expecting to find it at the top and went looking for it. So that's how I know, it's not that they're wrong, it's that I need to move the button. So that's the type of thing I'm looking for. And so far I've talked to 5 people, and I know it doesn't sound like that many, but for usability testing, there's a really strong kind of diminishing returns as you talk to more people. You really start to hear the same things over and over again. So this is, I've completed the first round. I've heard a lot, and there's a lot that we need to work on. So everything that you've seen, it's all going to change. And now, so I've got this long list. The next step for me is to go work on those issues and then kind of rinse and repeat, basically. So to tidy up, get it into a place where it meets those requirements, and then go back, do more usability testing. We do have also a back-end engineer who is working on the email notification part of this. And so that's still being built out. That's sort of, in a lot of ways, the more complex part. I kind of got out of that one. And so our plan is to release kind of the version 1 minimum viable product that does what it needs to do to really be useful to people, and then to kind of, as we go, to continue to improve on it. The old way of doing things in tech was waterfall, so you'd spend like 3 years on a project and gather all the requirements and build the whole thing, and then you find out that it's bad. So the new way of doing things is to the agile approach, to kind of build something that you think is going to be useful, get it out the door, and then hear what's broken and fix it kind of forever. So that's what we're hoping to do. We're hoping to get the first version out kind of late spring, early summer, and
This year?
this year, yeah.
Agile, they're being agile.
Right, that's great.
And that's version 1. So there's going to be a long list of features that we hope to add and that we hope to kind of continue to build on. But really getting the first version out there of something that will be useful to people, and then hearing what works and what doesn't work, and then just continuing to improve on it is the plan going forward.
Great. This is fabulous. I mean, are you building it so that you or somebody in development, et cetera, doesn't have to actually go back and remember to update this? That it'll just kind of automatically, when the project gets to a certain step, it'll
So for version 1,
okay.
it'll automatically each night go into the permitting database and look at what new applications have been opened for the 6 types we've identified that people are interested in. And then it'll determine from there what emails to send out based on what people said, what type of development for what radius within, a certain point. Again, not zip code. And then it'll say, hey, a new permit application was submitted. And that's version 1. What we're hoping to do down the road is make it so that when there's a change, you can kind of subscribe to updates. Say something's happening right next door to your house, and you really want to know like every step. But that's sort of the next step in this. So our version 1 is just like, hey,
The thing that comes in the door.
yeah, and then you will be able to you'll receive a link that's a link to the project page, and that page will be automatically updated just from the database of record, Excella, as we get updates.
That's great.
And you guys built all this in-house?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fantastic. So that's all good to know. One question I have is in terms of geographic distance, if zip code is too big, is there a way to maybe tag the system to our already identified neighborhoods? People can sign up to say, I want notifications in West Asheville, or in West Asheville Estates, or in East West Asheville.
Yeah.
Does that work?
I think what we've been thinking about doing for now, so the way we're going with for the next version, the next thing we're going to be able to take out back to users and see if this works, is to let people kind of divvy it up into large development and then maybe smaller scale development that doesn't go through city council. And then people can kind of pick which ones they're interested in and then pick the radius. So they can go either type in their own address or if, you know, they don't feel comfortable, some other address, or pick a point on a map maybe. And then put in the, you know, I want to know everything within an eighth of a mile. 'Cause it's small development and there's a ton of it. And then, you know, the neighborhoods, I think we can display the neighborhoods and what neighborhoods, you know, kind of have that there as a guide for people. But I think because not all the neighborhoods are
Identified.
exactly,
Yeah.
I think we're kind of leaning away from that for now.
Okay.
Well, and then too, I mean, some neighborhoods want to know about things that aren't in their neighborhood,
That's right.
you know, that may be adjacent, so, yeah.
Yeah.
One other question I had was, so what triggers this is an application.
Yes.
The required developer meeting happens before an application, but we know that people want to know about that. Is there, I mean, it's a pre-application meeting, so I don't know, but you see the disconnect that would be helpful to be filled somehow.
Yes, definitely.
Do you have any thoughts about how to fill that?
So one thing we've talked about is the concept of requiring applicants to register their neighborhood meetings.
That's good.
So if we had a requirement that there was you have to register your meeting with the city before you hold the neighborhood meeting, that then gives us the ability to at least collect some initial information.
Yeah.
And maybe that requires some sort of concept plan at least. So I think we've got to pivot a little bit and somehow get in front of those neighborhood meetings
Yeah.
just a little bit. Because a lot of times we don't know they're even occurring.
That's right.
But
That's
again, the registration might be a good option to explore. That may require an ordinance change.
A what exchange?
That may
An
require an
ordinance.
ordinance change at some point, but
Right.
that is something I think we want to try to explore. Because
Yeah.
that was one of the things that the Neighborhood Advisory Committee brought up.
I think it's a very important piece
Yeah.
to the puzzle, yeah. And then in terms of promoting it, I assume we're gonna partner with CAN and NAC and the
Correct.
City
Cape
Zone,
and-
right, everybody
Yes.
to get this out. Okay,
And I need to add one more thing that's important that I forgot to say in my intro. One of the things we hear a lot is that in the state of North Carolina, notifications are geared toward property owners. So if you're a resident or a tenant, you're totally excluded from any
Right.
kind of notification,
Right.
other than maybe if you see the sign.
right,
One thing we like about this is since it's an opt-in, everybody can have access to this. So
That's
if you're a tenant, if you're a renter, if you're even a traveler or a vacationer, everybody can get access to this notice. We do
Right.
think it doesn't solve the problem of tenants not being notified, but it's a really good step towards solving it if we can make sure that tenants are aware of this tool. So I meant to say that and I forgot to.
yeah, no, that's a good step. I mean,
Yeah.
that harkens back to the conditional use permit that we did for the cell tower in South
Yeah.
Asheville, that
Mhm.
none of the people most impacted were actually notified. So, yeah, that's very helpful. Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all
Thank you.
very
Great
much.
work.
Very good thinking. Yeah, I appreciate it. All right.
Cell tower's built now.
Is it?
It's up already, yeah.
It's beautiful, huh?
All right, so I think the next thing on our agenda
Yeah, it's new business.
is, okay, so the strategic event partnership proposals. I don't think anybody's here for that.
If there's seats, we've got some city staff and some other
And I'm just going to
people.
invite, actually,
Yeah,
city
so-
staff, can you guys just come fill in
Anybody on
here?
city staff, come on up here, and then I see one seat over here, I see one
Gwen,
seat there.
Gwen's being the good traffic cop.
Anyone else have a seat that we,
Yeah,
an extra seat?
you guys can, come on in, come on in.
And
I-
Chair Mayfield, when you're ready to start, if I could do an introduction, that would be
Sure.
great.
And there's a seat over.
Yeah, go ahead and take that. All right. Sam, are you going to come in or are you going to lurk? You're lurking, okay. All right, so
We
what
don't have
happened?
anybody else in the hall.
Yeah, is there anybody
Okay.
else out there that wants to come in? Okay, so Kathy, would you like to tee this up for
Yes,
us?
just Chair Mayfield and members of the PED committee, just a few opening remarks. We had this on your agenda for action. Staff would like the opportunity to do a little more research and then be able to come back to you in our April meeting. As you know, this is for our next 3-year cycle, so we have enough time as long as we get it done in time for the budget. So we wanted to do the presentation today, but we wanted to tell you that we have moved it so that we're not asking you for an official vote. And also just for we're not sure, and we don't want to lead people to believe that potentially our research could change the outcome of staff's recommendation. So I didn't want to set that expectation up, but we do need to do some additional homework. So I'll be happy after John's presentation to answer any additional questions.
Okay. And we've got a couple other people out in the hall, so if there's
Is there one more seat back there?
one up here, and
There's
again,
one
if
more
there's,
seat.
if there's any other city staff out there,
Yeah.
I invite you to come up here to make room.
Right, if there are staff sitting out there,
I don't
you can
think
come
we have.
sit up here.
Okay.
Or not.
Okay, okay, great. All right, John.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is John Philman. I'm with the Community and Economic Development Department. I'm the Outdoor Special Event Manager or Community Event Manager or Economic Development Specialist. There's several titles that I go by, but I am pleased to be here to present the outcome and detail the review of our 2020 through 2022 Community Event Partnership Program. This is a 3-year program that the city considers for nonprofit organizations that help the city meet its strategic goals and priorities through the special events that they'd like to produce.
And before you go on, can everybody in the room hear John well enough?
I can speak up.
Okay, and
Thank you for
Great.
noting that.
Yeah. thanks.
Okay, so the city of Asheville looks at these opportunities on 3-year cycles in order to give organizations an opportunity to reset and be prepared for changes that could be coming to their programming for the following years. So just to point out that we're talking about programming that will begin as early as possibly Easter of 2020. These recommendations have no impact on our current partnership program, which extends through the year 2019. We came to the Planning and Economic Development Committee earlier with a brief preliminary outline of the planned changes that we were going to release in a request for proposal. We also ran through those changes with the Recreation Advisory Board at that time. So subsequently to that, we developed some priorities through that process, which was to create a balance in uses, meaning program versus passive uses of our outdoor public spaces, to manage, of course, our capacity and our resources in order to accommodate those events, improve cost recovery for the city as costs to support events continue to rise, promoting sustainable growth, and of course, preserving what makes Asheville special. The changes that we're expecting for 2020 through 22 cover a few focus areas. One has to do with Pax Square Park. It is our one downtown public space that can be used for special events. And in order to make sure that the events that happen in Pax Square Park, those events of significant impact, so I'll point out that festivals are not necessarily all special events, but those of major impact, that those festivals represent a broad diversity in our community. And so for that purpose, we've asked those that want to produce festivals in Pax Square Park to apply through this request for proposals process. Our nonprofit fee discounts are currently at 75%. We are recommending that we reduce those to 50%. That covers things like property use fees and permit fees. Support is granted to specific events by service type, not variable. So this is a little bit different to understand, but in the current partnership period, we provide a value of in-kind support that the events are able to request to be fulfilled by a variety of city departments. Not all services the city can provide cost the city the same amount of money. And so obviously, as an example, waiving $500 in property use fees costs the city a different amount than providing $500 in police support. And so through this process, we've identified a need to make the services that we're providing more specified so that we can help control those costs a little bit better. And lastly, with the addition of our Office of Equity and Inclusion, we've included that office in a lot of what we've done in developing the program for this next cycle. Some other changes since the current agreements were established in 2016. We've seen fees increase in a variety of areas. That includes police, permit fees, sanitation, parking meter fees, and demand for public space. I will point out, and it'll be mentioned later, that sanitation service delivery costs have increased and our practices in handling sanitation have changed. And so historically, we've used a lot of different processes in order to manage waste that saves the city money or saves the events money. And for a lot of reasons, those different workarounds and systems have not proven effective. And so we're looking at creating a single process in partnership with other departments, sanitation, so that when sanitation services are provided, they're provided by the city at 100%. So we're out there actually taking care of the work instead of providing partial support or some combination of post-event pickup and sometimes delivering barrels, sometimes providing just a couple staff to assist volunteer staff, things like that. This is trying to clean up that process and make it consistent for all events across the board.
So with waste management, it's all or none?
Yes.
Okay.
With waste management, it's full service option that's been provided in the quotes. So we started off with a couple workshops that we offered the public, and we do this every time we go through the process. Explains our policy goals for event partners, which are closely tied with City Council's goals, their 2036 vision, supporting Asheville's cultural diversity, racial equity and inclusion, the sense of community, neighborhood identities, local commerce, entrepreneurship. We offer two partnership benefit options in this case. One option is priority use as a partner of our outdoor public space. We have an allocation for public space that is based on priority level, giving the City of Asheville first priority for use of the space, our event partners second priority for use of the space, and then from there it goes into a third, fourth, and fifth priority for nonprofits that are open to the public, all the way down to private events. And so access to public space becomes a benefit of partnership in this process. Priority use allows them to retain that date for the 3-year period without being challenged for that date after that first year occurs. The second option was priority use access and in-kind support. So that additionally allowed applicants to select a variety of different types of services the city provides without having to know how much those things cost necessarily. And staff then took those requests and met with each department to determine what the anticipated or current costs will be to fulfill those services through the next 3-year period. The RFP was released on November 26th. Applicants had about a month, a little over a month, considering the holidays, to complete that. We set evaluation criteria. We went over that in the RFP workshops, so people understood how they would be scored. That included things that you see here and the weights identified. This has not changed so much from the past cycle. And the results are in. This was our most successful RFP process to date for our partnership program. We received 17 nonprofit organizations applying for 24 events, and when we added up all the fees for the services that the partners were asking for, it came to approximately $352,000. These are round numbers because you can understand that some events have not been done under city support before. Some support is not offered at a fee, so we're literally going through the details of the event on the proposal and assessing costs as best that we're able in predicting what that would be. That I'll also point out, not to make it more confusing, but partners that do not request the city fulfill certain services may still be eligible for nonprofit discounts. So the $352 estimated value in requested support is at the full value. If I applied the nonprofit discount to that, the value would be less. The proposals were evaluated in a number of ways. As last time, we had a stakeholder evaluation group that was comprised of city board and commission members. That includes representatives from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, the Downtown Commission, the Neighborhood Advisory Committee, and the, did I say the Public Art Board already?
No.
The Public Art Board, those were the ones. Well, then we also had our staff, representatives from all city departments that make up our outdoor special event team, providing proposals. The staff evaluation was weighted lower than the stakeholder evaluation when we ultimately merged the scores together. We also did a cost of service assessment with city departments in order to capture all of the details we needed on the costs for each proposal we received. And lastly, with our focus on equity and inclusion, we took all of the scores and proposals and passed them to the Office of Equity and Inclusion so they could put an equity lens on it and look at things that they have the expertise to consider. And I realize this slide is small. I'm trying to get all the information on it. I'm not expecting you will read this, but what it includes is the scores, the flat scores, the equity lens assessment, which is based on a number, and the final ranking that ended up putting everything in order of. So you'll see we have, sometimes you'll see that the equity ranking had a strong impact on the score. Sometimes the equity ranking had very little impact on the score. It is a 10-point range that was used in equity and assessment, and that is how we got the events in the order that they are right now. I had looked at this in a number of ways. I feel like we have 20 scenarios for how the deck can be split, considering our current resources. And when this result is revealed, it shows clearly that those at the bottom of the list are those with costs associated, like ticketed events, have the dollar signs. Events that are exclusively ticketed, only accessed with tickets, are the dollar sign plus. Then you go up into the events on the opposite end of the spectrum, and those are largely cultural and community events. I apologize for that.
I was just gonna say, could
What
we
in
all
the-
turn ourselves in?
I normally don't.
John?
It has been a stressful couple days, so I had not wanted to keep my phone on mute. So the challenge, we go back to the original challenge that I mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation, which is how are we going to create balancing uses and manage our capacity, improve our cost recovery, all these things that I already talked about, so I won't read them all again. But I want to let you know a little bit more, and everyone that's listening here, about the types of in-kind support that are issued and where they come from. So we divided things up into categories. We looked at our community economic development fees and transit fees and thought that's administrative. We looked at permit fees, transportation permit fees, our transportation and development services. Those are permit fees with a cost a little bit heavier than the administrative fees, but not so much. Lost revenue parking services, that is what it is. Lost revenue from closing parking meters, rental fees. Those things have a bit of a labor impact. Parks and recreation parks don't maintain themselves. Public works, transportation costs are all labor related. And then you have direct labor costs, which are probably our most expensive costs: police, fire, and public works. Lastly, prior use of public space is a benefit, so we've included it there. Obviously, there's not a direct cost with that.
And John, can I ask you a question about,
Yes.
since we're on the slide, about the parking services? How do we determine that?
How many meters?
How many meters? And we've just set it's X dollars per hour per that.
Yes. Many of the fees, administrative fees, permit fees, parking fees, rental fees for parks and recreation, public works and transportation, those are all set fees and charges. So they're very easy to identify. They're quantifiable. We know exactly how many meters need to be closed within an area or a footprint for a festival. We know exactly how many hours a park is being rented for an event, based on the proposal information. Then you have fees like police, fire, and public works, which are highly variable. An event that generates a lot of waste is far different than an event that generates little. May need far more staff people to work, and those staff are working overtime to fulfill those costs because they're not working their regular jobs during the week. And so those costs are more challenging to quantify every year because it varies based on the event. So taking those fees and putting them in low impact, moderate impact, and high impact, we're talking about the budget impact to the departments that provide these services. And now I'm starting to, hopefully, to reveal on your staff report how those tier levels, how the resources are allocated by tier level: low, moderate, and high impact to our budget. So where we landed in this evaluation was that we had tier 1 requests receiving, on the left column there, all of the fees that they had requested. Now, I'll point out, not every event that submitted a proposal asked for every fee to be included. So the total cost to support that event may exclude certain city services that they did not request as part of their proposal. Tier 2 requests include the fees on the left, but exclude police, medics, sanitation if those things were requested, and includes the delivery of barricades and the installation of traffic signs, but they still retain access for property use. So we've separated that one just slightly.
So I'm sorry, Chuck, you said that this is, the major impact from tier 1 to tier 2 is really the labor,
Is the labor.
just the labor.
No,
The-
well, and, sorry, and maybe you just said this, but the rental fees of the signs and the barricades are included in tier 2 or no?
They are not.
They are not.
They are not.
That's the other.
That is
Just
a-
property use only.
Yeah, property use only. We retained that piece of it because it does not, while we do have staff at the pavilion handling the restroom and helping with the access to power and water, which is work to be performed, there's a labor impact related to that. The other piece of that rental fee labor where barricades and signs are provided includes a crew loading a truck with barricades, picking up and dropping off. And it includes the installation of signs by the transportation department that goes around and actually puts those signs up with a crew in a truck around downtown.
And John, on the labor impact, we're talking about overtime, right? Is that predominantly what's happening with a lot of these folks on the labor end?
When the city is providing the services in kind,
Yes.
I would say in almost every case, it is overtime.
So that's time and a half.
Yes. Tier 3 includes requests up to even less. It, of course, includes 3 years prior to use of public space at 50%. Now here, we'll point that out because we are not otherwise providing that public space at no cost. So it includes 3 years prior to space, 50% off, a standard discount, and the administrative fees that are included, which is the first tiers, which include your application fee and the minimal cost the city could provide. And the last tier includes the access to public space, assuring that those events in that fourth tier are guaranteed their space for 4 years, or for 3 years, and eligible for all of the benefits that our office provides that I wish I could talk to you about now, because we have so many amazing plans in place to help support and grow our special events as partners, even if they are only paying the 50% and not receiving discounts. But I don't have an opportunity to share that with you right now. One thing I will point out is we've recommended that the Asheville Holiday Parade not be considered an optional event, and that we move the Asheville Holiday Parade to a separate event production agreement similar to July 4th. The reason for that is staff believes the Holiday Parade is a event of significant interest to the region. It is a all-hands-on-deck production for the city of Asheville. And the Asheville Holiday Parade is currently produced by the nonprofit organization, by the Asheville Downtown Association, I'm sorry. And they have applied through this process to continue producing the Asheville Holiday Parade for another 3 years. However, staff believes that that event in particular serves a greater purpose and a greater audience that would justify moving that off of this process and into a separate event production agreement that could be managed by the city. I feel you may have a question. Vice Mayor?
Well, it's like you're just moving it and asking us to find that budget someplace else. I mean, we don't have the budget
Yes, ma'am.
for it. So it's another $50,000 that basically we're asking.
It would be,
So, I mean,
yes.
Says the chair of the finance committee.
right,
Yes,
yes, says
yes.
who's, and this is the same group that's the
Yes,
finance committee.
yes.
So, I mean, I think, we have to think about it in the aggregate. I mean, it's $43,000.
Yes.
That we don't have budgeted.
That's right. That's right. So when we add up the totals, as we've been able to estimate, the in-kind value at standard rates is $167,856. We add the holiday parade into that at about $43,349. And the Asheville Holiday Parade included in that brings our total to 211, 205. I have to admit that these amounts are estimates as best as we could calculate the costs. In some cases, our calculations may be more accurate than others because we've produced the events in the past. In other cases, they're less accurate because we're predicting what we think it will be. I will also note that the majority of year one costs for these events will not technically hit our budget until the year 2021-22 because they start after July of next year.
All of them?
The majority. There will be a few that begin in, there would be a few that would begin maybe in June, maybe one in late May. No, we don't have anything on the budget for late May
Not
right
in
now.
19.
Well,
Not in 19 and not in 20, but it would hit the next budget year after that because we wouldn't be delivering the services for those events until the fiscal year rolls around, which would be after July 1st, 2021.
Well, so you've got some SoCon stuff that obviously happens in the spring, because
That's
it
true.
happens now. And then the downtown market starts in
That's true.
sometime.
That's true. A bit of a cost there to consider that would be in this budget. Probably relatively small compared to some of the others, for sure.
And the 211 compares to what we're currently spending, which is 140,000.
Yes.
Is it, I thought it was 150 something.
No,
It is,
140.
it's on this.
yeah, the committed value is different than the spend value. So we have committed more to spend than we have actually been spending, according to our tracking.
Okay.
So we currently this year could actually reach that larger number if we utilize the full value. But I will point out that this year we will not have the Mountain Sports Festival, unfortunately, will not be occurring this year as scheduled and will not be using their in-kind resources. And the Five Point Film Festival that was approved last cycle never actually started. So that's why we've had this surplus, and this year will probably likely be a larger surplus. Interested at all in looking at the impact of 20 through 22 per year by department? This is how the impact is distributed.
Now, John, when, could any of these services be provided by non-City of Asheville employees?
Yes. So there are services afforded to city partners that are not available for the general public to request. Those services include traffic control signs, sanitation support services. Medics are generally not provided by the city. They're provided by the county or outside agencies. The police department does provide off-duty support at the same rate that we currently charge for on-duty to keep things consistent. However, organizations could petition to supplement or offset their police costs using private security in many cases. There could also be a petition for the organization to use. One example that is not involved in this partnership process is that we have an event where they need one officer to assist with the procession. They happen to have that officer as a member of their congregation that works for the county, and they're able to use that county officer to fulfill that service for them at no cost. So there are services that you can obtain through the city, but when it comes to renting barricades, we do not, or renting traffic signs, we do not send a crew out to put up traffic signs for events. And we do not manage any sanitation for any events unless it's under a partnership. And yeah, I believe I'd have to scroll back to look at the list to be absolutely sure, but I think that's it. Would you like me to be certain?
And when you say it's under a partnership, do you mean any of these events can like with waste management, which it's either all or nothing. Like
That's right.
any of the groups represented on this list can request that from the city, but they will pay for it unless they're in tier 1. Is that right?
That
But
could,
if I have an organization that wants to do an event that's not on this list, then I can't even ask.
it was not intended to make those services an option unless they were included in part of our partnership agreement. Now, I would say that if that was important, but the city providing those services would likely be the most expensive option the event could go with. So I would expect that if an event were not receiving those services, that they would use internal support, DIY, self-service, or they would hire a company in some way to help with that. That would be less because our costs would be the most they could possibly spend. Let me check this one slide, but if you give me just a moment, I want to make sure when I'm looking at these fees that I am not missing a fee with you that I didn't mention. So going through them, yes, application fees, alcohol fees, permit fees, property use fees, street closure fees, barricade and traffic cone, rental fees are all available for purchase, although barricades can be obtained in many cases at a lower cost through the private sector. Including if the event is a multi-day event, where we're charging per day, and in a multi-day event, they're delivering once, picking up once, it's a less expensive cost to the private sector. Then there's the transit detour impact fees are included. Then we get into the fees here that are pretty much not included. We would recommend someone find an outside medical support company to handle that. Law enforcement could be paid for if they would like law enforcement from the city. Waste management would not be available. Traffic control signs would not be available.
And John, is it, for those things, are there requirements for a certain number of law enforcement officers or medical personnel? Do we have those as part of the requirement?
We do have a requirement. With every event, it's so different.
Sure.
We try to provide an estimate grid in the event guide so organizers can get an idea based on the type of event, what they could expect a quote to be. A lot of times that quote can be offset by use of private security, by use of barricades or a boundary. So a lot of times police assessment has to do with the event itself. Is it contained and easy to manage? Is the crowd one that may just be relaxing versus up and active? Is there alcohol involved? All of those things play a role in whether or not the event might need more or less law enforcement or security, or a combination of both.
I have a question about the barricades. So I know this mainly from the downtown market because I go there on Saturday morning.
Yes.
That there's somebody sitting in a truck at the end of the street, presumably to, I guess, move the barricades if they have to be moved. Does every event have to do that? Do you have to have somebody sitting there at every barricade ready to move it?
Yes, it is the city's, so that situation is unique, but to answer your question more broadly, the city's policy is that all points of hard barricade closures need to be manned. Now, there are some times when we need to do a soft closure 1 block in advance to let people know the road is open, but it's going to be closed. And in those soft closure locations, we don't require volunteers to man those. Mainly our barricades will slide down the road on a windy day. And we want to make sure those barricades stay in place. We also want to make sure guests attending the event have someone to talk to when they arrive. And if people need to come through the event in the case of an emergency, if they happen to live there, any other reason that they would need to have a representative at that barricade point. So we ask for that at all events. In the case of the city market, that is a specific fire control assignment where the city market is required to hire a licensed security guard to be in that location because of the high rise that is on both sides of that road. And the fire department found that when we moved the market to that location, it was so critical that they needed to make sure there was a licensed security person there. We have one other position, which is at the corner of Market and South Pack in front of the fire department, where that position always needs to be a licensed position because we cannot delay by any amount of time a fire vehicle getting in and out of the event site. So that's another position that cannot be controlled by a volunteer. Okay, so one last piece to this proposal included a strategy asking all festivals, large major impact events in the city to apply through this process. which we did simplify quite a bit to make it easy for people to fill out an application online. And through this process, we are hoping to equalize and balance our one main public space when it comes to events with significant impact. So through this process, we have been able to accommodate all of the festivals, Impact Square Park, to our goal of an average of 2 festivals per month. Now, 2 festivals per month may not keep the grass growing each year, but it is a solid effort to create a balance between programmed and passive uses. And so you'll see here, we do have the closure right now, January through March, and then again at the bottom, November to December. But through the month here, we've got some festivals that have qualified that go into the areas of equity, strong equity focus in green, moderate equity focus in blue, and some concern about equity inclusion in yellow, which should not be perceived as a negative, but an opportunity. And so hopefully, this schedule for the next 3 years has enough diversity and inclusion and a broad appeal to really showcase Asheville. And these elections on this schedule have nothing to do with the in-kind support that's being offered. These are all partners. Some receive more support than others, but it's a matter of managing our schedule for the festivals that happen in Pack Square Park and trying to balance what's happening out front. We will still have special events going on, like Shindig on the Green is not on this list. Shindig on the Green is not considered a festival in the sense that their impact is low. There's no transit impact as a result of Shindig on the Green. There's a very low impact to the grounds and property with it just being lawn chairs and people on the grass. There's a couple vendors, but not a huge amount. So we considered Shindig on the Green a low impact event, and they're not subject to this schedule. I believe I've taken as much time as I possibly wanted to. I know there are others that would like to have something to say. Are there any questions for me at this time?
Hang on just a second. Let's see. Can you, maybe before you leave, just put back up the slide that tells us the factors that were considered in the decision-making? Yeah, that. Okay. And then just to be clear, the equity and inclusion piece is not on this slide, but it was a part of it. I mean, maybe it comes under.
It does.
City council vision
Yeah,
alignment?
yes,
Okay.
there was, what we worked with equity in advance in designing the proposal,
Okay.
so that each of the questions that was evaluated was written in a way that was equitable and would provide the equity office with information that they needed. So we didn't evaluate people on how much money they had in the bank or what their ability to execute the event was in certain cases. There were certain questions that we have asked in the past that were modified or excluded in order to create an equity selection of questions. And then through that process, the equity office took the responses and then added the equity lens on top of that because they had the data they needed to apply the lens. The lens then multiplied the score in an equitable way.
Yeah, can you go to the score? Yes. And explain that one to me again?
Sure. So we can eliminate, I
Can we
estimated.
make that bigger?
Is there any way to-
Sorry. I'm not ancient, but I'm too old to see that.
Well, okay, that's okay. I mean, so I think so the score, I mean, let me see if I can explain this and you tell me whether I'm right. So the score was.
That's super big.
We got that one, and I love it that you have a little dancing.
That's what symbolic.
Okay, so the score was determined by the combination of the partners from our boards and commissions and city staff that are involved in these events. And then the equity is a multiplier, so you took 13 times 92.5
Yes.
to get to the ranking.
There was a 10-point range between the lowest and the highest
So you're saying
variable.
from 4 to 13?
That's right.
That's the 10-point range. So
Yes.
that was your multiplier. Okay.
And so you'll see in some cases, there are higher scored events that reach tier 2 if we were not including an equity review on this proposal. Not incredibly crazy to think that I would say that the disparity between 1 and 2 is not so dramatic. We are still looking at, in most cases, a fairly close assessment. But the equity lens allowed us to provide that extra step that you see in the graphics in achieving equity to some of the events that needed that extra step to get over the top.
And I think it's worth saying here for maybe the two people who've been living under a rock for the last year and a half, this is, this new equity lens is new, and it is important for the city. It is a key part of City Council's vision, is a key part of the how the city is moving forward with everything. We have now a fully staffed equity office, and I think we have a couple of people here. Is it Nia? Is that right? I don't know if anyone else is here, but so this is new. And as I started looking at this, and as we started getting emails from a lot of folks, clearly this is new, and it's resulting in a change, which is what happens when you start looking through new lenses. As someone who gets new contact lenses my prescription changes about every 6 months, the view changes dramatically when you use something new. So I just think it's important to call that out and be very open about that, about what we're seeing, and that's hard. It's hard. We have experienced this in other decision-making arenas at council, and so it's just hard. But it is where we are. So.
Nia is here if there were any questions specifically about her evaluation and review process.
So we're not going to vote on this, and we'll vote on it next month.
In April? Okay, great. And so what I'd like to do at this point is open it up to folks who have come to make public comments. And I know we have a lot, and so.
Can I ask one question, John?
John.
Sorry.
Thought you were.
I
Thought you were
were like, gonna go turn your cell phone back on, weren't you?
Yes.
When the folks were, filling out their form, like, did they know about the various pricing, and did they know about options, about, like, you could get somebody else to do that, not necessarily the police department, that kind of thing? Or what was it? I guess my question is like, when people were asking when they were filling out their request for the city services, did they know that this cost $2.50, which of course nothing did, $2.50 versus this one costs $5?
No.
Okay, and then, and I thought I heard you say that people now will have an opportunity to come and talk to you about, well, can we switch this out for that, et cetera, so that they will have an opportunity, since now they've got a year, at least a year, that some of these estimated costs, the events themselves could possibly reduce the costs that you've estimated, because you've estimated, like, assuming that the city provided all the services.
Yes, we're always.
For whatever they ask for.
Yes, we're always wanting to help organizations find ways of being more sustainable. Our education series, which is through the IFEA organization, has topics on everything from sponsorship management to volunteer management to fundraising and cost management. We have lots of subjects, and we've continually tried to work with the organizations to train them and educate them on how to run a sustainable festival, an event. At the time of the proposals, or I should say, in the workshop sessions, we let them know that they could indicate whatever services they were interested in receiving, and they would be evaluated on those services. Now that we have the results, and those services would presumably not be provided, our office would do what we can to direct them to service providers and suggest options to self-manage those services, because in many cases, that's what they're going to have to struggle with by the time their event comes around next year, next summer.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so here's the drill. If you'd like to speak, come on up to the microphone and do speak into the microphone again so that the live streaming can pick up your voice, and you'll have 3 minutes. Well, tell us who you are, and then you'll have 3 minutes. And then if there are, we do the same rule here, that if there are, if a single speaker gets 3 other people to give up their time, then you can have 10 minutes. So I'm just going to start over here. Is there anybody over here who'd like to speak?
Who's going to keep track of time?
I will.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Miller, and I appreciate you all giving me the time to speak to you today. Members of the council, I'm here on behalf of the Folk Heritage Committee, a nonprofit responsible for planning and carrying out all facets of Shindig on the Green and the Mountain Dance and Folk Festival. I ask that you keep Shindig on the Green at a support level 1 with full support for the 2020 through 2022 cycle. As you ponder this important decision, perhaps these facts will help to illustrate the impact that Shindig has had on the people of Western North Carolina. 16 Grammy Award winners and nominees have played at Shindig over the years, and some of these folks even got their start as children playing at Shindig on the Green. These include Brian Sutton, Bobby Hicks, Mark Pruitt, David Holt, Josh Goforth, and members of the bands Steep Canyon Rangers and Balsam Range. Also, Shindig on the Green brings in millions of dollars in revenue to the local economy, and it has been voted #1 local outdoor concert 3 years in a row in past years. To be honest, no words express the value of Shindig on the Green better than those found on their website. The Folk Heritage Committee produces Shindig on the Green and its sister event, the Mountain Dance and Folk Festivals, to support the preservation and continuation of the traditional music, dance, and storytelling heritage of the Southern Appalachian Mountains. Between 3,000 and 5,000 people attend Shindig on the Green evenings for free throughout the summer. In addition to throngs of locals, visitors routinely travel from out of state, across the country, and even around the world to make their way to downtown Asheville for Shindig on the Green. Shindig on the Green occurs thanks to the talent and generosity of its volunteer musicians and dancers who span several generations, much to the delight of those in attendance. From young children perfecting their square dance steps to great-grandmothers singing ballads passed down through the years, the region's wealth of traditional talent takes center stage. Since the outdoor event's inception in 1967, hundreds of thousands of individuals from across the region and throughout the world have shared and enjoyed the rich traditional music and dance heritage of the Southern Appalachian Mountains in this outdoor setting. Keeping Shindig on the Green at a level 2 will seriously jeopardize the future of this worthy and historical event that is truly unique to Asheville. I'm a native of Asheville. Not many people can say that as I walk around town. I've seen Asheville become a place where people love to be in the evenings. And I remember as a child, thank you for your time.
All right, I'm going to do one little amendment because I know that we have a lot of Shindig people here. I know we also have people representing other groups. I think most of the people in this line may be Shindig folks. How many people are in line right now? Like 5? Mike, are you in the back? Okay. We also, I'm going to try to be finished at 5:30, which means, so let me just ask, who is here for an event other than Shindig who wants to speak? Okay. All right, so we cannot do all of you and be finished at 5:30. So here's, I guess, let me do this. Let me start with this. Let's have one person from each different event go first, and then we can start over when we hear from every event that wants to be represented. So I'm sorry, Carol, I want to make sure that every event gets a voice. So is there anybody in line who's not with Shindig? Okay, come on up and talk to us.
My name is Abby Dickinson. I'm here representing the Asheville Brewers Alliance and Beer City Festival. This year will count the 10th anniversary of Beer City Festival, which is the capstone of Asheville Beer Week. As we all know, craft beer is a large driver in our community. It makes up a lot of what visitors come to see Asheville for. And this year, although some of us did attend some of the information sessions, due to some upheaval and turnover in the nonprofit, we were not able to apply in time to be considered. So there's nothing in May. That was when we traditionally, we are June 1st this year, but that's because the way that the calendar fell. But we would like to have the opportunity to apply. We can do it in a very quickly, efficient manner with the support of John as always, and be considered for that as well.
Do you know what tier?
We would probably be the lowest tier, as it is a ticketed event. We are capable of outsourcing a lot of our.
So okay, so that's just so it's really just the priority use that
The
you're
priority
trying
use,
to
we've
get
been
access to.
there now many years. Our 10th anniversary year will be there, and so we would like to continue to be there for the next 3 years as a priority festival.
Okay.
This isn't a dialogue,
Yeah.
sorry, it's just a request.
Nope, no worries.
Thanks.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Cruz. I'm the Artistic Director for Leaf Community Arts. I wanted to share a little bit about the heart of the equity lens on our event, particularly as a large dynamic event. I feel that sometimes with the wealth of programming offered, some of the nuances that we offer might have not gotten full consideration, but we wanted to share a lot of those elements with you all today. We're sincerely honored, first and foremost, to continue our partnership with the City of Asheville. Since 2015, we've held 4 consecutive, highly impactful, sustainable, and thriving events, in large part and in major part due to the kind support of the city. Leaf Downtown was developed to further the city's goals of fostering inclusivity, community partnerships, and vitality in the greater Asheville area, all while driving Leaf Community Arts' mission to connect cultures and create community through music and arts. And we honestly cannot do it without your support. There are a few insights that we'd use to strategically achieve these goals. We have a 20 by 20 Voices of Asheville tent on site that features 15 different socially conscious organizations each festival, engaging in powerful dialogue in the heart of the city, including equity, access, social activism, human rights, environmentalism, arts advocacy, and healing. Our headliners are strategically curated with urban crossover music every time, welcoming a vast multicultural demographic, including War, Family Stone, Grandmaster Flash, Bootsy Collins, Maceo Parker. Our performers represent the traditions we hold dear in Western North Carolina, including folk, roots, buskers, and regional best, yet we additionally ensure space every event for the rich talent of our historic African American community, Latinx, LGBT communities. And we finally add the special sauce of Leaf International, emphasizing global citizenship and unity. We support our economic vitality by focusing investments in our regional community with performers, 80% local, service contractors, 90% local, artists and vendors, 90%, food vendors, 100%, being from Western North Carolina. We have a discount program, though, that's in place to help untapped communities participate, and we'd want to welcome city advisement on how to find potential food vendors, artists and vendors to have a deeper commitment or a partnership within our organization for the event. Our staff is currently maintaining a 20% threshold of racialized representation on their staff, and we're striving for 30% by 2020. With over 25,000 people in attendance each festival, including a wealth of locals and tourist draw, hotels, restaurants, venues, and storefronts have reported record revenue weekends surrounding the Leaf Downtown event since its inception in 2015. And in August 2019, we're thrilled to be launching Leaf's Global in the historic Del Cardo building. coinciding with the 5th annual Leaf Downtown event. Leaf Global is going to be a cultural arts center right across the block off Biltmore that'll have a wealth of creative programming, engagement activities, interactive museum, and world cultural experience. Lastly, we're honored to report that in 5 years of the event hosted, in a time of volatile sociopolitical unrest regionally and nationally, and despite regularly achieving huge crowds of 25,000 plus in attendance throughout the weekend, Leaf Downtown has remained a trusted, safe, and welcoming container for all walks of life, with 0 reported instances of aggression or social disruption. Thank you all for your consideration. We hope to continue this strong partnership with the city and appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike McCreary, and I manage the Asheville City Market, and I'm a program of Appalachian Sustainable Agriculture Project. I may be diving into the details a little bit more than other speakers, so stop me if you... there is a bigger picture, though, that I wanted to share along the lines of what John was saying with a greater purpose. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the important role that the city has in the development and expansion of the local food economy, both in terms of economic development and promoting health and wellness. The city's partnership with ASAP has been critical to the creation and continuation of Asheville City Market, which now supports up to 80 small businesses and farms each year. I have 2 requests relevant to our status as a strategic event partner. The first is that I'd like to be clear that Asheville City Market would not be sustainable without the support of the city. As a downtown market, we currently bear costs not usually associated with farmers markets, including over $10,000 a year for vendor parking and barricade monitoring. Even though our vendor fees are the highest of any market in the region, it is a challenge to break even. The staff proposal in support of Asheville City Market includes $22,500 in meter closure costs and $2,400 in application and permit fees. And under the recommendations, we fall into Tier 2. The market would no longer receive support for barricades or traffic signs. A cut in the city's in-kind support for barricades and traffic signs would present a significant obstacle in terms of cost, storage, transport, each week over the course of several months. Given the economic and community impact of the downtown farmers market and the city's commitment to supporting local farms and businesses, we request that the elements of in-kind support in place now continue at service levels with barricades and traffic signs included for 2020-22. What would this look like? The projected cost of barricades for the market would be nearly $6,000 a year, which breaks down to about $160 per Saturday. I'm going to talk briefly about there's kind of a feeling that it's apples and oranges. I'm having some trouble comparing a farmer's market to an event, and that's part of a bigger picture, and I'm hopeful we can engage the staff in additional discussions about maybe the difference between a farmer's market. My second request relates to that position of the farmer's market being perhaps somewhat different than the series of events you're reviewing. I'd like to take this opportunity to request consideration of a proposal to extend our unique relationship with the city to a longer-term partnership. We believe that Asheville City Market will be here in 5 and 10 years, but I will not.
So, Mike, it looks like can you just send those
Yes.
written comments to each of us?
I will.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to address the Planning and Economic Development Committee for the City of Asheville. I'm Melissa Porter, and I'm the event manager for Chow Chow, an Asheville culinary event to be held this September 12th through the 15th. This is the inaugural...
Hang on, just let me interrupt you for 1 second. So if you guys are going to share the mic, then like really share it. So you get on up there and you speak, and then you step away and you speak, because she can't hear you. So step a little bit closer.
Okay.
There we go. And you can pull it, there you go, pull it up a little bit.
Okay. So
Thank
my,
you.
my name's Melissa Porter, and I'm the event manager for Chow Chow, an Asheville culinary event to be held this September 12th through the 15th. This is the inaugural year. However, this festival's been in development for 4 years. And so I'm here on behalf of the Chow Chow Board of Directors, and we have 10 other board members representing farms and artisans, and Peter Pillay with Pasana is here, and Vanessa Salomo is here as well. And at this point, I want to introduce JL Radigan, who's the CEO of French Broad Chocolate, but she is also the vice president for Chow Chow.
Hi, everyone, thank you. Okay, thank you. I'm standing on my tippy toes, thank you. So Chow Chow is a food and beverage maker festival. Our mission is to celebrate Asheville's creative table through meaningful programming, immersive experiences, and charitable programs that connect people to the diverse collaborators in our corner of Appalachia. We were fortunate to receive some seed funding from the TDA, but of course that's a small portion of our total budget. We'll rely on partnership with sponsors, the county and the city for financial sustainability in addition to ticket sales. Our goals align strategically with the city's 2036 vision. We strive to create an environmentally sustainable, equitable, and diverse cultural event for our community. We want to have an open dialogue with the city as we develop the festival, so we're collectively creating the impact that we want to see for our community. A few of the initiatives that we have been discussing in the board include curated programming that speaks to our cultural heritage and history, as well as our diversity, programming that is free and accessible to the public, including much of the Pack Square Park events. We've established many community partnerships, including Green Opportunities, Manna Food Bank, Haywood Street and Welcome Table, Food Connection, AB Tech, ASAPs, and many farmers and artisans, makers, and small businesses. We're striving to create a sustainable, zero-waste event, and we're excited to support our nonprofit partner, Manna, with whom will shine a light on the food insecurity in our community. So like John said, we'd like our low equity score to be seen not as a negative, but rather as an opportunity, and that we can work together to create the impact that we want to see.
I did just have, move that up for the tall person in the room. I did have a few more things to add. I wanted to recognize the restaurant industry in Asheville, that there's 5,841 people employed by that. We also gave $2.14 million to community organizations and nonprofits this year. Also, festivals like South by Southwest in Austin and Charleston Wine and Food Festival have a proven business development driver economic engine behind it. So there's been proven companies and entrepreneurs, small businesses that have actually moved their business to those cities because of the festival and their association with it. We feel like PED and ultimately City Council should support Chow Chow with in-kind services, including application fees, permit fees, medical, law enforcement support. We did submit the RFP for 2020 to 2022, but we are asking to go out of process for 2019 since this festival is happening this year for the first time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And let me just get a show of hands. I know there are some other folks in the audience here for Chow Chow. So Peter and, okay, a handful of others. And I'll do the same for Shindig, but I'm pretty sure we're going to get back to you folks. Come on up, Duana.
So hi, I am Duana Little. I am the Executive Director for the Waima Cultural Center. I'm here to speak on behalf of Goon Bay. I would like for us to remain in Tier 1 and request that we be considered in Tier 1. We're actually going into our 40th year of this partnership with the city. This year we'll be having our 40th anniversary, so I'm super excited to see how we continue this partnership moving forward, given some new planning and some new things that have been implemented to really expand and build on some of our weakest areas over the years. So we are looking forward to advancing the relationship, and we would just like to request to remain in Tier 1 with the partnership with the city moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Come on up. Are you next? Yeah. Okay.
Hi, my name is Adriana Chavela. I am the Executive Director for Ola Community Arts.
And I'm Ron Stamey with Ola Community Arts. Many people know us from Ola Carolina Magazine, a Spanish language publication serving the region.
We recognize the power of the arts to challenge and shift perceptions, spark creativity, and connect people across cultures. Downtown Asheville comes alive with Ola Asheville, with the signs, sounds, music, colorful costumes, and extraordinary talent of Latin America. local and regional Latin acts take the stage and unite our community. I am originally from Mexico, but it's amazing how we are more than 20 Latin country representative here in Asheville, and it's very important for me, for all our community arts, to tell the Latino community that Asheville welcome all of us.
It is very important. We often go to a dinner party and there's 8, 10, 12 countries represented at our table. You know, you're looking across at Colombia, Peru, Mexico, of course. And, you know, Western North Carolina is a cultural crossroads, and we're excited to be a part of it. This is the third Ola Asheville Festival. We consider ourselves new kids on the blocks, and we're just very grateful to the city of Asheville for all its support and guidance, especially from John Philman, to produce this event. I think it's an important part of the community, and I hope you will support us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Megan Rogers, Asheville Downtown Association. I'm here to encourage level 1 support of our series of events, which includes Downtown After 5, Easter on the Green, Pritchard Park Series, and the Asheville Holiday Parade. The current proposal would mean about $10,000 in additional costs to Downtown After 5, $2,000 to Easter on the Green, and as you saw earlier, $45,000 in additional costs to the Holiday Parade. Plus, there's significant capital and logistical costs that have to happen as well, because we would have to either buy or rent barricades and road signs. To talk about the Holiday Parade, you heard the recommendation that it be removed from this program to its own production agreement. I won't speak too much on that, except to say that we can't absorb $45,000 in additional costs and would no longer be able to produce the parade. We're a little different. We produce lots of events all year long, not just one festival. So the revenue generated from an event like Downtown After 5 actually helps cover the costs for events that don't make money, like Pritchard Park, which operates at a loss and includes the drum circle, and Easter on the Green, which actually operates sometimes at a break even, sometimes we make a little money, sometimes we lose a little money. So any increase in cost of that would put it in the red. And this lack of funding or loss of funding would impact our ability to continue to produce those events. We'd also have to consider monetizing some of the services we're offering for free to our fellow nonprofits and also other nonprofit event organizers. Downtown After 5 is a legacy event. It laid the groundwork for a lot of the events that are represented here in this room in 31 years this year. But it's not just important for its history, it actually supports the local economy at $100,000, and that's just the money we spend on Downtown After 5 and local companies. That includes $10,000 each year to fellow nonprofits, a program which has invested more than $250,000 over the years in our community nonprofits. It doesn't account for the economic impact of attendee spending with downtown businesses and food vendors, which just hikes that economic impact up higher. I'd also like to remind you that when the city decided to stop producing events, you came to us and asked us to produce the 4th of July event. When the Merchants Corporation wanted to stop producing the Holiday Parade, you guys were part of a group that came to the Downtown Association asking us to take that event over. When the Drum Circle, that's my page. When the Drum Circle was in danger of losing its regular Friday night spot at Pritchard Park, y'all came to us and asked us to pull the permits and provide the insurance. And then we also have a longstanding relationship with the city. You know, we've directly invested in improving public space with projects like the Lexington Life Column, the Urban Trail rebranding, the Downtown Local Lights Holiday Program, the cigarette butt receptacles on all the downtown trash cans. We paid for that. And then most relevant to this conversation is the Packsburg Park canopy. You know, we funded that project, and it's now an amenity that most of these events are using at no additional cost, saving them thousands of dollars in tent rentals. So just ask that you consider all of those things when making this very difficult decision, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Megan.
Hi, Tina White, Executive Director with Blue Ridge Pride. I just came back from Charlotte, where I was actually handing out 1,000 of these buttons. Blue Ridge Pride, Western North Carolina welcomes you. And that really, I wanted to thank you for the support that we've received from the city. One of the most common complaints that we get from young people, students and young adults, is that they don't feel as safe or welcome in their own city as they used to. And what's so cool on that one day of that festival, you stand up there on the stage and just look out there, and the kids just own the city, and their families are there with them. Last year, we ran the first procession It was the WNC, welcoming WNC procession that was so successful. We'll be doing that again. Thank you for being there at the head of it this year. I hope you're joined by others next year. But we really try to focus on local development. There are over 70 local businesses, healthcare providers that are at the festival. There are over 50 nonprofit community and civic service organizations that are at the festival. And then there are over 40 activists and politically oriented organizations at the festival. And so where else can you go in one day and just get all of that and some good food and drink and music? So I just wanted you to know how much we value this, and we hope you come to our second annual welcoming WNC procession through Asheville. Thank you.
Okay, so let's do like 3 other speakers. So I know a bunch of Shindig folks. Carol, come on back up. You were next in line, so let's start with you.
My remarks will be brief. My name is Carol Peterson, and we appreciate the opportunity to be here today. We have lots of representatives from Shindig on the Green, a very passionate group. I know, as you can tell by our attendance here today and by the emails that you've gotten. I know you've gotten various and sundry emails from people who perform, from people who attend, from people who sponsor, from people who just are very, very interested in Shindig. So that's why we're here. We want you to realize that we are the sister event of the Mountain Dance and Folk Festival. And years ago, almost 100 years ago now, when the festival was started, 92 years ago by Bascom Lamar Lunsford, whose name is on this stage out here where everyone has the opportunity to dance and have their performances on the Bascom Lamar Lunsford stage. Our sister event, the Mountain Dance and Folk Festival, was so successful that after the nights of the festival, the first weekend in August, folks went over to Westgate and they played and sang all night. And the city fathers, and now the city mothers, the city fathers came to the group who did that and said, why don't you come downtown and have a festival downtown? And so the spinoff of these groups playing at the Westgate was the beginning of Shindig on the Green, which is now in its 63rd year. We're pretty successful because we have 3,000 to 5,000 people per night come to downtown Asheville. This past year, our economic impact was $3.2 million. If you have 4,000 people per night at a festival over the summer, then you're bringing 32,000 people to downtown Asheville to spend their money and enjoy mountain music. I'm really glad to, as I read your 2036 plan, to see that one of the things that you're very interested in is keeping the culture of our Appalachian mountains going, and that's what we're doing here. And I think when you read the many letters that you've gotten, see the support that we have, see the good things that we do for Asheville with an all-volunteer group, no paid staff, then I think that you will see that it's very important that we move from Tier 2 to Tier 1. We don't want there to be any possibility that this Shindig on the Green will have to. Well, we don't have curtains out there, and we don't want to have to close the curtains on Shindig on the Green. It means too much to us, to the city, to the people who are here, and I think to the folks that it brings to Asheville. We have groups that come. We have a Ohio State University group that has their reunion here. We have had people from Ireland who met here for a family reunion. We bring people here, and we're proud to call this city home. We thank you all for what you do. It's not easy. Economic impact for the last 5 years, 6 years, and our full study.
Great. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you very much.
And just who else is here in support of Shindig? Okay. I was getting a show of hands because you're not all going to get to speak. That's what I was saying.
Yes, Madam Vice Mayor and City Council members and staff, thank you for this opportunity to speak. And thank you for serving our community as you do. You have a lot of challenges. We appreciate that. My name is Richard Hurley. I'm an Asheville native. And I hope you had time to read my email from Saturday. It's much more lengthy than I'm going to be talking about tonight. But regarding the placement of level 2, shindig at the level 2 event placement there beginning in 2020. I'm a volunteer with the Shindig on the Green. Been an advisory committee member for a number of years, a sponsor, I'm an MC, I'm a performer. And visualize with me, if you will, if you're standing up at the western boundary of the Roger McGuire Park looking toward the Bascom Lamar Lunsford Festival stage, on any of the Saturday nights, the 8 Saturday nights when the Shindig is in session, on some of those nights you'd be looking at 5,000 people looking at their backs, looking at the stage. This represents a very diverse audience of locals and tourists from across not only just the United States, but from across the country. You would see much social diversity as well. And you would see entertainers from 3-year-old cloggers up to 85-year-old musicians who are gracing the stage there. And this, of course, is not happenstance. It's through the efforts of aforementioned Folk Heritage Committee and that group of volunteers which works year-round, literally year-round, to make that event happen, which has a $3 million impact on our local culture. 53 years the Shindig on the Green has been going on, and for financial reasons, obviously, being slotted in level 2 may put us in jeopardy in 2020 and beyond, and we just may not be able to function. So please understand, though, we are very grateful for the past participation and past in-kind support which the city has given us, and so I ask you to consider upgrading the Shindig to level 1 status, since its demise, in my opinion, would be a cultural devastation, if you will, felt not only here but nationwide. That's how well known the Shindig is. And incidentally, as MC, I can remember many times introducing a lot of the folks that was aforementioned. And if those celebrity performers were here with us today, I think they would say amen to what I've been saying here and what our other Shindig supporters have been saying. So on behalf of our community and the Folk Heritage Committee and us pickers and singers, thank you very much for your consideration of this request. And the Shindig on the Green deserves another 53 years, or maybe another 253 years. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is there anybody else? Are we all finished? Oh, sorry, come on. You've been standing for so long, I just thought maybe you were standing.
I am Carol Rifkin. I have often chronicled the history of the Shindig on the Green and all the music in Asheville, write about music. There's two things I'd like to say. One is that Shindig is unique compared to many. As some things were separated out, there's 8 Shindigs. Most of the other things on the list are one-shot things. So 8 times the added expenses is really a burden, a terrible burden. The other is that Shindig on the Green holds the cultural history of Western North Carolina in music. It is a melding pot of all the people who came through here. It's 200 years of history put together. The first clogging team in 1927 had Cherokee Indians on it. Many of the people on the stage are of, a lot of the people in this room have Cherokee heritage. The dance that's unique to us is unique. Our square dance is in a circle. If you go to Gadua, it's because the Indians dance in a circle. The downbeat of the music and the style that we play here is influenced by the Cherokee and many people, and it represents the African-American banjo, and it's just our melting pot in our history. It would be really a shame to see it go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much for coming. I'm sorry we didn't get to everybody. So as you've heard, we're not voting on this tonight. It will come back next month, and I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to say about it. I don't know, anything that either of you want to?
Other than to say, you know, we have to make tough decisions. And it's not, I mean, I was just telling Julie that Saturday night I went to the Madison County Fiddlers and saw several of you there. You know, this is not because we don't think your event, et cetera, is good and that your mission isn't great. It's just, you know, we're going to have to make tough decisions, and unfortunately, there's only so much money. I mean, whatever decisions we make, don't take it as, you know, that we're saying something negative about your event. It's just we have to split the money up.
that was what I was going to say, so
Oh,
thank you.
sorry.
And I hope, everybody who is, all of the events that are now in tier 2 or lower tiers, not where they maybe want to be, can look hard at opportunities to reduce their costs in ways that really only the organization uniquely controls, as opposed to anything that the city can control. I don't know what those opportunities are, because I don't know all of these events, but that's, if I were in your shoes, that's the place I would start. So I guess that's it. Anything else, Kathy, from you? Okay. And I think that was really sort of public comment, but is there anybody that wanted to say anything else about anything else?
It wasn't on the agenda.
All right, great. Thank you very much.